Alright, the next project has been add an additional top to my flip top tool stand that has the other set of videos on, and this is a removable top just sitting on top of it, with the goal of this stand being a multi-purpose outfeed table for not only the table saw but also eventually. So the current project is add a removable top to the old flip top tool stand I had made with the two sanders underneath, and basically add a removable top on top that uses the same pins on the that hold the top steady to hold the adjustable top on, with the lowest position being, or meaning flat down on top, being the height of the table saw outfeed table. And I didn't get this far, but maybe next weekend, adjust it upward with other pinholes drilled so that it will work for the bandsaw. But first it was getting set up to work for the table saw. So what I did, see if I can get down in here and kind of show. So width-wise, in order to get to the same height as the table saw with the feet down, I have 2x4 half-inch piece of plywood, quarter-inch piece of plywood, and another half-inch piece of plywood, all screwed together. And there is a brace going across here at 15 inches, at 30 inches, at 45, and at 60, because this is a 60-inch long tabletop that I added to the 54-inch or so flip top stand. And then, let's see, that's the best way to see that. Probably right there, maybe. So for the sides, I have a 2x4 coming vertically, pocket screwed across and down, and then I had initially clamped this to the sides before I did the tabletop, and then moved the tabletop, drilled out through so I could locate the holes, and then up underneath here, which you can sort of see right there, there is a hinge which goes back and down inside this 2x4, and what that lets it do when you pull the pins. Oh, I also had to make a slot here in the center. You can kind of see that dug out there, because on the flip top stand there is a bolt that comes out that holds the two sides together, that also uses as the centerpiece that holds the rotation portion. And so I had to do, and since this part slides up, I had to cut a slot with Forstner bits coming down through so that when you lift that up it slides. So I put these 2x4s about an 1/8 inch in, so they are located in between the two posts, and that way it holds it very steady. That plus the pins means it's as rock solid as the whole stand is. So that's this piece, and then I didn't glue. This was all just scrapped plywood that I got from when my neighbor had a rack on the wall and racks in the garage taken down. They didn't want it, so I got all the scraps. So this is just repurposed wood for this top. So that's what we got for the stand. And let's see, I don't have a good measuring tool anywhere nearby, but there's my hand, so that's, you can kind of see that it's like a 1/16 or 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch drop from the part that I attached, the wooden part that I attached to the table saw. And then if you look, it's a drop from the table saw down to the wooden part. So this is a 36-inch Sawstop contractor saw, and on this outfeed side of the saw there's an L bracket that is used to stabilize and hold all the table pieces. So you can kind of see there, there's three main bolts that there were three main bolt holes in this area on the bracket, so I just drew on the wood with a pencil for the first 2x4 that and then drilled up through. And the other thing I did just to try and make this so it made sure to have a drop, because some of these 2x4s were of different sizes, is I actually ran this first 2x4 through the planer and thinned it a little bit. You can see right there, there's just slightly thinner. That way we definitely had it down lower. Turns out I probably could have avoided doing that and not gone as thin, because we do have plenty of space here, but I wanted to make sure we didn't have this sticking up above the table, because that's bad. So then I just have three sets of 2x4s here. Each one, so the first one is bolted to the stand with three 5/16 inch bolts with the bolt head going down through. So I put a washer underneath, and then I just used the ratchet to crunch the top of the bolt down level into the 2x4. Instead of countersinking it, I just had it countersink itself for those, and that worked. And then you can kind of see right there, I pocket screwed a bunch going down across from the second 2x4 into the first 2x4, and that made it fairly solid. And then I did the same thing from the third 2x4 into the second 2x4, and then I put a piece of 1/2 inch plywood on top, and it's surprisingly sturdy. I may also come in here and put little adjustable feet up under. That way I can, either that or just blocks of wood, such that when it pushes down it references against the stand there. But for now it's just floating, and on the flip top stand I actually have the tabletop shifted forward such that, I think you can kind of see there, that gives me a clamping surface on the front and on the sides this way, which I didn't really have before. And so that, as an added benefit, gives me this 1.5 inch ledge that the table saw piece can overlap. So that works good. Oh, all right. And then I just used, I think it was 1.5 or 1.25 inch screws, and I went through with a countersink, a number 6 countersink bit, and countersinked a bunch down through, and then sanded it to make sure it's nice and smooth. And this way pieces just come right off down onto here and then right down onto there, and that's going to work really nice. So this is what it looks like from where you would be sawing, and this is about where it's going to go in the garage. So I went and leveled the feet a little bit. I may have to level a little bit more on the actual stand itself. I did try and level these two, but then over here is where the dust collector and the power is. So since the dust vent, or the dust output port is here, I can just run my 4-inch hose down and connect in. And I actually tried it, and I actually used the saw finally, and that's how I cut these little narrow pieces of plywood for the table saw outfeed ledge. This other piece was 2 foot by 4 foot that I had cut, well, I had cut to length with just a handheld circular saw with a plywood blade. But this section, because I had to rip it for, you know, the width, I actually used the table saw for it, and it actually cuts really nice. So I'm very happy about that. It's surprisingly quiet, considering, you know, it's a table saw. Even cutting, it's surprisingly quiet, so they have a good blade. Well, For whatever blade came with the saw, it seems to be a really nice blade because it cuts very smooth cuts on the plywood. And I used the Stumpy Nubs method, or the method that they mentioned on that channel recently for the proper blade depth, meaning you put the gullets just above or right at the surface of the wood, and that made a really nice cut. So yep, that's the first piece for this. I'm very pleased so far. Initially it was just 2 pieces of 1/2-inch plywood, and that gave a bigger drop, but I realized I don't want that big. I don't want a big drop, not that it's super bad, but I don't want a big drop here and then another big drop here. That didn't seem to make as much sense. So this smaller drop, again, it's about the thickness of a plane, or not a plane. Let me get a straight edge. Hold on. Okay, so I got my level, and that's held down so it's flat with the table. And the table here, let's see, can I zoom in? I think I can zoom in. Well, I tried zooming in. Okay, so that's about a centimeter high there, or 3/8 of an inch or something. And then turns out this table actually comes up, but that's fine. And then that's about 8 millimeters, or probably 1/4 inch on that side, so that works out. Oops, no, don't zoom in. Yeah. So overall, I think that's going to work. Just come out, catch on the up, and then down. So there's no, like, you wouldn't want to go this way because it would catch, but going this way, it's always up and then down, up and then down. So yeah, I think that's going to work really well. And I'm very pleased with the, I know that wasn't for this time, but very pleased with how well both the wheels on this one and the wheels on the table saw let me move around. Because once I plop this flip top stand down, I can just roll the saw right over to it, put the wheels down for that, and then for whatever reason it's a little bit, when I do that, the saw on that side, on the right hand side, is a little further away. I think that's because where I have the wheels down here, you can see the left hand side is up higher at a steeper angle. So I think it's just due to the way that triggers down and stops when it comes down to, as to how it sets it back down. But yeah, I think this is going to work really well. That's it for this time.